Be clear about the why before diving to the what. Compare benchmarking delivers the most value when it's anchored to a specific business question or strategic goal.
Welcome to Opportunity Minded, a series for enterprise leaders, corporate strategists, and forward thinkers like you who want to drive business growth. Each episode focuses on a distinct strategic approach to help you unlock opportunities with actionable insights. I'm your host, Jessica, a producer at Euromonitor International, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Joao Pascual, who heads up our company's practice. Today, we'll be talking about how you can use competitor benchmarking to spot performance gaps and fuel smarter growth decisions. So, can you explain to me what is competitor benchmarking?
Well, in short, it's the process of evaluating a company by comparing its performance, products, processes with competitors, and in the end of the day, to identify areas for improvement, right? So basically, it's about helping companies see where they are, why, and what to do next.
Okay. And can you unpack what that process might look like for a business?
Try to think of it that it's comprised of 5 layers, right? So you start by assessing, is our sales growing, or generally how our sales is performing, right? That's the basic question, understanding of their baseline performance, how they're doing in absolute or relative terms. Where are they winning and where are they struggling, right? So pinpointing specific channels, products, areas that they outperform or underperform competitors or whoever they're benchmarking against. The third layer is about identifying whether they're growing faster or lower than their peers. So identifying relative performance, are we gaining or losing ground? Are we winning or losing? Diagnosing the drivers behind this performance across, again, that can vary, but pricing, products, product mix, and so on. And the fifth and final layer is what you didn't do next, right? Once you've conducted that benchmarking exercise and you mapped out whether if there is a gap or an area of opportunity, then what is your go-to-market? What your go-to-market strategy should be like?
And why is this competitor benchmarking process so important?
There are a number of scenarios why an analysis like this is important, but think about the market landscape where a lot of companies are in today, right? Companies struggling to increase their sales, right? It's been tough, especially within FMCG, to drive volume growth. A lot of the recent growth has been driven by price. So the moment where companies are today, it's about, okay, if we are struggling to generate the results that we believe we can or that we have the power to achieve, or when our results are fluctuating and the company needs to clarify, right, whether their performance gaps is driven by an internal factor or market driven factors. Are we underperforming because the entire industry is also not doing very well? So the underlying factors are outside and not inside, or actually we should be looking more into an internal inefficiencies that we can course correct, right? So it also helps them understand these gaps and these areas of improvement, whether again internal or external, before they make any major decision. So whether that next step is a market entry, whether that's about launching a new product and so on, it helps guide and inform the direction with evidence.
Well, to highlight the value of competitor benchmarking, I thought that we would get in a little bit of a game. So, Joao has prepared some data from Passport, our market research knowledge hub, and is going to quiz me on my knowledge. Joao, can you tell me what data we are going to be looking at today?
Yeah. So today we'll be looking at our data, including our company growth outlook. So specifically, we're narrowing down to the top 20 global beauty and personal care companies and how they have grown over the last 5 years.
So, we are calling today's game Company Trivia because, well, that's what it is. I have a feeling this one's going to be a little bit tricky, but I heard that if I do get them all right, I will win a brand new appliance suite for my kitchen. So, that's just what's going
High
to happen.
stakes. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see how I do. Are you ready to play?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm
So
ready to play because I'm the one actually playing this time.
so let me test in order to see if you can get that appliance that you're looking for.
Okay. I need them.
Based on our latest analysis of the top 20 global beauty and personal care companies in the world, which company do you think achieved the highest absolute value sales growth over the past 5 years? To help you, I'll give you five options, whether it's L'Oreal, P&G, Unilever, LVMH, or Estee Lauder.
I am going to say Unilever because I just see that on a lot of products that I have at home. So, based on solely my experience and all of the things that I see, that's the one I'm going with.
That's not the right answer. So the correct answer is actually L'Oreal. So L'Oreal generated over $22 billion in total growth over the last 5 years. And to give you an idea of how much sales we're talking about, that's nearly 3.3 times more than the second highest company, which in this case was P&G.
That's a really big difference.
Yeah,
Okay.
you have a chance to redeem yourself with the second question.
Okay. Oh, well, so I just have to get one right. Cool.
Yeah.
I like my odds.
And now for the challenging question and for the one
Okay.
where you can actually get your appliance. So now that you know that it was L'Oreal, out of the total 22 billion in total growth, value sales growth, what proportion do you believe came purely from market share gains, excluding mergers and acquisition? Is it more or less than 30%?
I think it's more. I'm going to go with more. Gut says more.
Correct. It was
Yes.
more. It was 36%. So over a third. Not only L'Oreal achieved such impressive growth over the last 5 years in absolute terms, but when you think about how they generate that growth, was not only by taking advantage of the fact that well, BPC as an industry has been growing, but they captured market from competitors with new products and so on. Nearly 36% of their sales growth was through market share capture. To show how great that is, that's 10 times greater than the second largest market share gain reported by, in this case, Grupo Boticário. This, in the end of the day, highlights L'Oreal ability not only to defend its share across BPC, but also to expand its market footprint significantly faster than their other top 20 global competitors.
Well, I got half of the answers right, so I think that means I'll at least get the new stove and the new refrigerator. So we'll see if those show up
Exactly.
anytime soon. Thank you. Clearly, companies stand to gain a lot by increasing their market share, like L'Oreal, but there's much more to competitor benchmarking than just shares, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So um, we look into a number of dimensions that will enable this commercial, that can enable this commercial success. And that will be a mix of, yeah, looking to market share. That's definitely one of the metrics that we'll evaluate, but it's looking to both quantitative hard metrics and qualitative strategic factors. So there are a number, and those will vary by industry, segment by segment, but a few important KPIs would include commercial performance, sales growth, revenue margins, shares, profitability, pricing strategy, channel product mix, financial strength, were there general ROI or return over investment, cost structure, just to name a few, right? And when you're looking about a strategic or operation effectiveness, we would then be looking to, on top of these core KPIs, we would be looking to their innovation pipeline, their speed to market. What is the brand strategy? How does that compare with, again, competitors, distribution, the reach of their products or services? So the KPIs, in the end of the day, they are determined by the goals of the department or the client that we are working with.
Okay, that sounds like a lot of things to have to look into. So would your typical competitor benchmarking study include all of those KPIs?
Not necessarily. It really depends on the core problem or challenge that we're trying to solve for a given client. So, like as I mentioned before, sometimes the client's particularly interested in understanding and benchmarking how they're innovating or how fast they're innovating or how fast or how their prices or margins are vis-a-vis their competitors, just so they can um, restructure their own operations. Let's think about an example, right? So let's say that you're a snack brand and your goals are around increasing sales. In this example, what that would involve is a certain set of KPIs, mostly related to commercial and performance indicators. Things like evaluating market share growth and the underlying factors and drivers affecting that, sales volume or value, retail distribution metrics, um, promotional effectiveness, share of voice, brand visibility, consumer sentiment, just to name a few. Um, and if finance or strategy team also wants to better understand their position vis-a-vis competitor, then that's where we introduce profitability or cost structure into the mix. And again, then we will also evaluate gross margin, net margin comparison, or cost of goods sold, and again, a breakdown of raw materials, packaging, logistics, price positioning, trend, trade as a percentage of their revenue, among other relevant metrics. I could go on. The list could go on and on.
All right, so that's how you narrow down what you're looking at, what performance indicators you're looking at. Does the same goal-focused approach apply when you're selecting what peers you're looking at?
Um, that's a good question. So most of our clients who are, in this case, who are leading FMCG players, they will know usually they will know who they want to benchmark against. However, in cases where we are working with a client who doesn't know who to benchmark, and we did therefore to match them, we need to identify and come up with a choice of peers. Ultimately, that will depends on the business questions that we're trying to address for our client, and B, the context of the benchmarking study, right? So based on what we just discussed. So similar to the way we would select the KPIs, we'll also need to identify comparison based on a mix of, are we talking about direct or indirect competitors? Are we talking about peers, aspirational? Are we talking about a best in class example from another industry? But there's still learnings that this company can take from a best in class, even if it's from another industry. So it's not just limited to large companies or the same size. We can focus on large SMEs, we can look into startups. The selection is guided by the client's strategic objectives, whether the goal is to defend share, enter a new market, or optimize operations. All of these nuances are important for us when we are picking or deciding the peers. So if we go back to our example, if you are a snack brand and your goal is to increase market share and drive sales, then it would make sense for you to look at other players in, let's say, the savory snacks space. Brands like Lay's, Pringles, Doritos, and other potential local, regional chips or nuts brands, if relevant, because they are competing for the same shelf space, price points, and consumer occasions. We wouldn't necessarily look at, for example, confectionery brands in that scenario because their consumption moments, pricing dynamics, even retail strategies are quite different. So the goal is to benchmark against those who are directly competing for your shoppers' attention and wallets.
All right. Well, I will always be looking to confectionery, even if I am a snack brand or not. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Joao is going to talk to us a little bit more about working through the rest of those layers of benchmarking.
In a world where every mattress and meal kit is number one, who's actually telling the truth?
Marketing claims are everywhere. Best coffee, fastest delivery, most loved brand. But are they real or just really good fiction? At Euromonitor International, we verify marketing claims with independent global research. So when you say you're number one, you've got the data to back it up. Make your claims credible. Visit euromonitor.com/claims because trust isn't just earned, it's verified.
Welcome back. So, as we've established, I am a snacks brand. Hi. And I am working through my layers of benchmarking. I've identified my business questions. We've narrowed down our KPIs, our peer group based on those questions. And now we are looking at that competitor data. What exactly am I looking for?
So when we start to compare performance, we start to compare product portfolio or coverage across peers or competitors. So ultimately, what the benchmark will do, it will highlight gaps in categories, gaps in terms of performance, in terms of distribution, in terms of market presence, and so on and so on and so on. Uh, like we just discussed before the break, the gaps, the areas that we're going to analyze will vary depending on the business needs and the industries. But ultimately, with gaps, what we would do is review areas where a company can differentiate, innovate, or what kind of strategy they can implement to stay ahead of competitors. So, one thing is that we will find the gaps. Another thing is analyzing them and the kind of insights and analysis that we can derive on the back.
Right. Because it's one thing to just spot those opportunities, but then you need to do more than just like, oh, there's
Yeah, one
there's a
thing is
gap.
benchmarking, then the other thing is okay, what do you do with that information?
Right. Can you give us an example of that? Maybe if I'm a, I don't know, snack brand.
Yeah. So again, let's say that we've identified that your snack brand is underperforming in China, right? So maybe your brand is already active in that market, but is losing share to local or regional competitors for reasons that you're not necessarily aware of. Whether that's across sales performance, distribution, marketing, or pricing, the question becomes, is this market a strategic priority for you? Or if not, then it might make more sense to shift resources to markets where you're already performing really well. Assuming, for example, that in the US, your brand has strong brand awareness and solid distribution, so you can protect and grow your market share there. China can still be a strategic priority. And if China is a strategic growth market for you and for your brand, then the next question becomes why this is happening. For your snack brand, that could be due to several factors, several drivers, such as limited production localization, flavors or pack sizes not in line with local tastes, or retail penetration, weaker presence in channels that are actually growing, brand awareness gap. Local players might be investing more in digital or influencer marketing or in marketing channels that generate a better return, has a higher ROI vis-a-vis what your current strategy is. Pricing misalignment, position either too high or too low versus competitors. Slower innovation cycle, maybe the speed to market in terms of new flavors or formats introduced is less frequent than competitors. So they stay more on top of that. So once we understand which of these drivers are at play, we can then determine whether the opportunity lies in fixing performance gaps, optimizing investment, or redefining the market approach altogether.
So knowing the drivers, you should be pretty well positioned at that point to make some moves.
The competitor benchmarking process will enable some practical near-term tactical insights. For example, pricing adjustments, portfolio refinement, marketing, sales, distribution focus, channel optimization. Should I focus on e-commerce? Should I focus on brick and mortar? If brick and mortar, which and if we decide to focus on brick and mortar, then which specific channel? Should I focus on specialist channels or generalist retail channels, partnerships, promotions, and so on?
Those all sound like things that you could action pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But let's assume that you're again, if we go back to your example, let's assume there is next company is struggling, right? Sorry to hear about that. And you really want to recover some lost ground, whether that's capture share, etc. And you're going to want to wait a year or two for that. No, right? If your company is struggling, you want to react now. You want to identify the problem as soon as possible so you can start planning around it. So your company needs insights today. So your teams can go and help now to cover some of that ground and start the recovery process. It's more about what near-term strategies they need to make over the next 6 months to a year in order to have long-term results.
And then how often should competitor benchmarking be revisited?
Any company in a more dynamic industry or segment will need to do this more often, right? We need to keep an eye on competitors to better understand where and how they're performing and how you're doing. In some industries, such as FMCG, you might need to do that more often, sometimes quarterly, sometimes a half a year. We get many clients asking our help and support to evaluate their performance on a quarterly basis, on a half a year basis. Uh, but in other industries where the cycle is slightly longer and it's less dynamic, then it makes sense for that process to be annual or sometimes even every 2 years.
What do you think is the most common misconception about benchmarking?
People think that it's a passive exercise, that it's a passive exercise focused on numbers or just simply copying or emulating what competitors do. But in the end of the day, it's the complete opposite, right? Competitor benchmarking is a strategic tool and exercise for companies to understand why peers are performing the way they are, whether that's better or worse, whether it's outperforming, overperforming their own individual performance, and what does that mean for their own business. It's not about imitation. It's about context. It's about differentiation and ultimately decision making.
If you could give one piece of advice to a company who is about to undertake competitor benchmarking, what would that be?
Be clear about the why before diving to the what. Compare benchmarking delivers the most value when it's anchored to a specific business question or strategic goal. It's not just about, hey, I want to benchmark myself against my competitor. Let me know how am I performing. It's not about that. You need to have a clear direction in place.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning into this episode of Opportunity Minded, brought to you by Euromonitor International, the first destination for organizations seeking growth. And a big thank you to Joao for sharing your expertise with us today. If anyone out there would like to reach out to you, how can they get in touch?
People can connect and reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Stay connected with us on social media or visit our website to explore more resources and join our community. Until next time, stay opportunity minded.
Yeah, L'Oreal is doing a lot of things right.
We'll give them a new tagline if L'Oreal's doing a lot of things right.